Okay, so the programming practical one is Introduction to VB. VB is Visual Basic. For this practical, you need to have an IDE such as Visual Studio Community 2015, which is what is recommended for this topic, for this programming topic. If you have 2010 of Visual Studio, yeah, it should still work fine, but obviously the recommended one is 2015 because it's a more recent version. So as I said, it's better to do than to just watch and read books about this programming. So it's advisable to, even if you can't catch up during the practical session, you can always redo it at your own time and rewatch the video about the practical, or go to Moodle and watch some videos. Okay. Do not try to cram too much concepts. In this case, you have to learn more by doing or by practicing the programs, practicing how to write programs and where you can find the different controls within the interface. So having said that, let us begin. The first set of instructions here is all about how to start Visual Studio Community 2015. Okay, how to start Visual Studio Community 2015. So I have, so you can follow these instructions. Obviously, if it's your first, if it's the first time you will be using the application. In my case, it's not the first time I'll be using it. So some of these settings, I wouldn't need to do them. But it's very important to go through these instructions, especially if it's your first time of starting up that application, right? Okay, so I already have Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2015 installed on my computer. Okay, so all I need to do is to just start it. All I need to do is to start it. In my case, I can just click on the start button and look for Visual Studio 2015. Visual Studio 2015, and then I click on it. Okay. If it asks you to choose default environment settings, then follow the steps. And then at the end of the day, all we want is to ensure that the Visual Studio application can be used and it appears on the screen. So I'm just going to give you 1 second or maybe a few seconds to look for Visual Studio 2015 on your computer. And then these instructions here are for you to configure your Visual Studio Community 2015 application. Okay, so when you open it, you have to open it first. Then you go to Tools on the menu bar, and then you look for Options. Then in the Options dialog box, there are different nodes. You click the Projects and Solutions node, and then I will show you a screenshot in the next page, which shows you what you should expect to see. Okay, so this is the screenshot. When you click on Tools in the menu bar, you click on Options. You see many nodes here. You select the Projects and Solutions node, just like you see here, and you'll be able to make these changes, and you click on OK. So that's just to configure Visual Studio. Okay. If you have questions, please remember that you can always speak to the microphone by unmuting yourself first, and then after your question, you mute afterwards. Or you can just type into the chat section if your environment is noisy or if you think you can't speak at that time. So I'm gonna go ahead to start my own Visual Studio by just typing Visual Studio. Okay, there you have it here. Visual Studio 2015. It's loading. Okay, so you should have this interface at the back, the one rolling at the background. That's what Visual Studio 2015 looks like. The landing page looks like that. And then when we start it, we'll click on the file. We'll click File on the menu bar, click New Project to open the New Project dialog box. Okay, but I'm still waiting for mine to finish starting up. Okay, here it is. There we go. So, oh well, you may not be able to see the full screen because of the boundaries of Zoom, but I'm sharing the full screen as much as I can. Okay, let's try something. Okay, let me try to see if I can share the whole screen without having to cut out any side of the screen. Okay, I think I'm just gonna have to stick with this interface. All right, so up here you see File. Okay, you see File. Then if you click on File, you should click on an option called New Project. File, New Project. So the project contains all the files and applications and solutions of the program that you are creating. Okay, so now you have to specify what type of project do you want to create. So within Visual Studio environment, there are different types of projects that you can create, and you also have to specify the location where you will save the project. So all those configurations, we'll try to do them now once the application loads. Well, depending on the speed of your computer, you might realize that the Visual Studio 2015 might take a little bit longer or shorter to load, depending on how heavy the application is when you were trying to install it. Okay, so now after clicking New Projects, I have this interface. Okay, so on this interface, there are templates by the left. So by the left, you see templates, or if your own starts with installed. If this is the first thing you see recent. Those are the recent things that you did. You see installed, and then you see online. Okay, if yours has already been expanded, under installed, you should see templates and samples, and then under templates, you should see a whole lot of templates, Visual Basic, other languages, and other project types. So we are interested in Visual Basic, so I select Visual Basic templates, and then under Visual Basic, you see the different types of so we have Windows, Web, Cloud, Extensibility, and the like. So we are interested in Windows. Okay, so you select Windows, and then here you look for Windows Forms application. As you can see here, it's written Visual Basic. Okay, do not mistakenly select Visual C# because Visual C# also has a Windows Forms application that you can create. So be careful in this case when you're selecting the Windows Forms application. We are interested in the one that says Visual Basic VB, not Visual C#. For now, we are not interested in Visual C#. We want to do Visual Basic. So you click on Visual Basic up here under the templates, then under Windows, then you look for Windows Forms application, Visual Basic. All right. Now you come down here. The default name, as you can see, the name that is preloaded is Windows Application 2. That's how your project will be saved. So your project is it will save it in a folder for you, and it will give the name of the folder Windows Application 2. So you can change that. Let's see if there is an instruction. So here, let's look for an instruction maybe to change the name to. Click File. We've done that. We've done that. Enter an appropriate name. Okay, so you can use any name of your choice. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead to use Practical 1. I'll just call it VB dash practical. So I want to save my project as follows: VB dash practical dash 1, and the name of the solution is also going to be saved as VB dash practical dash 1. So here you can change the location. Currently, it's saying that it's going to save this file into documents. Inside documents, it's going to save it into Visual Studio 2015. And then inside that, it's going to save it into a folder called projects. So I am okay with that. I don't want to change the location. So I'll just click on OK. However, if you want to change the location of this project that you're about to create, you click Browse, and you select anywhere on your computer, that you would like to save your work. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to do. So cancel, because I want to save it there, and then I'll click OK. Now it's creating the project VB Practical 1. It's creating the project VB Practical 1. So this is the first thing you need to understand how to do correctly, because if you do not create the project successfully, then you realize that all the work you'll be doing may be gone, or you wouldn't even know where it is being saved. So it is absolutely important that you get this right. All right. So here we have it on the screen. We have a form window here. You can expand this if you want. You can disable it from being expanded. On the left here, we have a toolbox which contains common controls like pointer, buttons, checkboxes, which you can also call objects. Okay, and then on the bottom right corner here of the screen, you have the properties window. You have the properties window. Okay, so in the properties window, that's where you can change the properties of a selected object. So currently, what is selected is the form 1. So these are the properties of the form 1. So you can change the properties of this form, starting with maybe the name of the form. The name of the form here is not the same as what you see here that says form 1. What you see here is the text property of this form, like the name of the heading, the title rather, the title bar. The title bar has a name called form 1. This, if you want to change this, you don't change it from the name here. You change it from the text property. So there is a text property here that says form 1. So if I clear this and I enter, let's say first project, press enter, you see it changes the title to first project. Okay, you have to get familiar with these properties right here and understand what each of them applies to, because if you mistakenly change the name property when you intended to change the text property, then you would have issues when running the program. And this also applies to every other object or control that you'll be using in this Visual Studio application. As I said earlier, I want to believe that before now you've already been introduced to this topic, and that you know these terminologies like objects, classes, methods, properties, controls, variables, and things like that. Okay, so well, if you have forgotten that, or if you have not been, or if you were not there when you were introduced to the topic, you can always catch up by watching the videos or reading the notes that have been uploaded on Moodle. Okay, so that is the first thing we need to do. I want to believe that everyone has been following so far. So right now I'm just gonna take questions if there are any before we move on to the next thing. All right, so I only got one question. Actually, this is not a question. Can't even install the app. I'm not finding it. I'm sorry. I don't. I don't know what you mean. You cannot find the app. Where? The app cannot be on your computer. You have to download it or get it from someone before you can be able to install it. I think I said that earlier. The Visual Studio application does not come with your computer. So you have to get it either by getting it from the university's website, the software repository, then you download and install on your computer. That's how you can get it. Or you can just find it on your computer by searching for it if it's not already there. Anyone else? Okay, let's see. what the next instruction should be, just to be sure we are still following the instructions. All right, so we've done this, we've done this, we've done that. We're now on page 4 of the practical document. So as I've just shown you, we have the Windows form designer window, which is what we have here. This is the Windows form designer window. Remember, when we're creating the application, it was a Windows form that we selected. So this is the designer window of the Windows form, where we design the interface. This is where we design the interface, and that's why you would see in the name here is written form1.vb design. Okay, so there will be another interface where you'll be entering the codes, the VB codes. Okay, but for now we are in the design window, the designer window. And then this is a toolbox tab, as I showed you, that contains all the tools or controls or objects that you'll be using to design your interface on this form. Okay, and this is the solution explorer that shows you the content of your project. Okay, so right now the name of our own project is first, what did I call it? VB Practical 1. Yeah, so if you come to the solution explorer, a project has been created called VB Practical 1, and inside that project, or which is a folder, then you have these files. Let me see if I can show you where that is created. Documents, let's go to Visual Studio 2015 projects, and there you go. So this is a folder that was just created today, and as you can see the date right here. So this is the folder that was created when we created the project, and if you open that, you see a solution file. You see a solution file, and then you see this folder. Okay, so this is everything that our project contains at the moment. So after you've created your application and you want to run it, you can just come to the solutions file only and just double click on that to run it. Okay, that will implement, that will open up your solution. So in this case, I'm right here. Yeah, so this is Solution Explorer, and this is the properties window where you change the different properties of the object or the control that is on your screen at that time, or that has been selected in the design window. Just a quick refresher about what an object is. I believe you have been introduced to that. So in this case, you have things like button, a checkbox, a label, a list box, a picture box, a text box, a radio button, and things like that. So these are examples of controls, and they can also be objects, and the objects have properties, and they can also perform some actions, or some actions can be performed on them. So the properties of an object would be like the color of the object, the size, you know, maybe the background image, the text, and the things like that. And then the actions that can be performed, or the events, or the things that it can do would be the methods. Okay, and usually the properties are written in the noun form, and the methods are written in the verb form. Noun, verb. So the methods would be the verb, and the nouns would be the properties. Okay, so later on we'll be seeing how we can actually write an expression showing how an object and a property connects together using the dot. So you say label 1 dot this, or text box 1 dot that. Text box, for example, when you say text box 1 is an example of an object or a control called text box, and the name is text box 1. That's why it's called text box 1. This is the name right here. Remember, the name is an actual name of the control. It is within the name property. If you see another text box 1 here, it probably refers to the text property, but now, as you can see, the text box 1 is blank, so there is nothing within it. Okay, so if you want to specify what must be contained in this text box, then you change the text property. So that will be text box 1, which is the name of this control, dot text. Text box 1 dot text. That will be talking about what must be inside this text box, because it's, it's a text box. It needs to contain something. All right. So by default, it contains the text in strings, or text, which is the string data type. So in this case, it is blank, but the name is text box 1. So you can decide to change the name here from text box 1 to first box, as long as you'll be able to remember what that is. So it only changes the name, but the appearance is still there. Okay. But I'm not going to tamper with that for now, but I'm just using that to. So if you want to change the property of the text, then it's a text box 1 dot text. If you want to make it maybe do something, then you'll be talking about the method. Okay. But the text box 1 dot text and all those other things, we won't do them in the designer window. We will only do them in the VB code window. Okay. But we don't want to get too far ahead of the instructions, so I'm just going to delete this. All right, so having known that, now let us move to okay, these are some instructions on how to manage the windows in the IDE. To close an open window, click the close button on its title bar. To open a closed window, use an option on the view menu. To auto hide a window, click the auto hide vertical push pin button on its title bar. These are just some controls, some instructions on how to manage the windows in the IDE. So here there is a pin status. There is a where you can open and close the windows and minimize them, and these are the things that you have been. These are just common practices of managing a window. Window here being this interface, the rectangular interface that we are working with now. Okay, so you can always try that out. Now, how to add a control to a form. I'm on page 5 of the practical document. How to add a control to a form. As you probably observed when I was trying to explain the objects now, I added a text box to the form. The text box is one of the controls in the toolbox, right? So here it says click a tool in the toolbox, but do not release the mouse button. So let's assume that I want to add, okay, let me make this bigger so that you can see when I drag something to the screen. Let me make this a bit bigger, okay? So toolbox, it's a click and do not remove your mouse. You do not remove your finger or your hand from the mouse button. Okay, so in this case, if I click on text box, my hand is still there and I drag it to the surface and then I drop. So that's one way of adding the tool called, or the control text box, into the form that we have here. Let's see. Hold down the left mouse button. As you drag the mouse pointer to the form, you will see a solid box, an outline of a rectangle, and a plus box following the mouse pointer. Release the mouse pointer. So these 3 steps, I just did them all at once. Okay, so the first two, whatever you click on the toolbox here, if you want to auto hide this, you can see already now it automatically hides itself. But if I click here now, it always stays by the side. Okay, so this is one of those things that was being explained up there when I was talking about how to manage the window in IDE, talking about the auto hide part. Okay, so without clicking this, it means it will always auto hide when you're not using it. But if you want to make the toolbox to always remain by the side, then you click on this pin to pin it down by the side. Now you will always see your toolbox by the side. Okay, so those are nice things to know. So we've done the first way. Let me try to drag another button. Click this, I hold on to the mouse, you see, then I drag and then drop, and then you have it on the form. Same way, you click this, you hold on to the mouse, you drag, you drop, label, click, drag, drop. Okay, so that's one step of adding controls to your form. All right, so let me go ahead to delete this. Then let's check another way of doing that. Click a tool in the toolbox and then click the form. Click a tool in the toolbox, place the mouse pointer on the form, and then press the left mouse button and drag the mouse pointer until the control is the desired size. Another way is to double click a tool in the toolbox. Okay, so click a tool in the toolbox, click on the form, you see it appears straightforward. Again, click any tool here. Let me use combo box, and then I come to this place. As you can see, the mouse cursor changes, like it has something that wants to be dropped. So when I click on the form, it drops it there. Or sometimes you click on text box and you come here, you can decide to make it big before you drop it. Let's try that with a picture box. Click picture box, come here, drop and drag. So you are doing like two things at the same time. You are not just dropping it, but you are also specifying the dimensions. Okay, that's another way to add controls to your screen, to your form window rather. Again, double click a tool in the toolbox. So if I want to add label, just okay, now let me add radio button. If I double click this, you see it shows up here. If I double click text box, it shows here again. If I double click progress bar, it shows here, even though you don't see anything yet. If I double click a list box, it shows here. So that's another way of adding controls to your form. So whichever way works for you, absolutely is fine. Either you drag and drop, or you drag, or you click here and click here, or you double click, whichever method is fastest you can use. So having learned how to do that, now you can learn how to manipulate the controls on a form. Okay, to manipulate the controls on a form. To select a control, click it in the designer window. You can also click the list arrow button in the properties Windows object box and then click the control's name. To size a control, either drag the sizing handles that appear on the control when it is selected or set its size property. If you noticed, I have tried to drag, so let's say I want to manipulate this. I believe if you've been working with Windows very well, very often, then you'd know that, okay, you can easily expand the size of this just by dragging it by the edge or by the side or by the top, wherever it is you want to expand. You can always do that. Okay, or you can come to the properties window here. The properties window, you can come here and specify the size, which is right here. If you change the size here, let me change this to 100, 100. You see, it changes, it takes the shape of the new dimension that I specified. And if I expand it here, also it changes the properties of the size here. Okay, so the width is 268 and the height is 186, so it's width by height. So that's just one way of manipulating that. And of course, if you want to delete that, you can just press the delete button on the key on your keyboard, or you can right click to delete the control. Okay, if you want to move a control, you can click on it and wait for this time the mouse cursor changes to the 4 arrows. Click in the center, hold on to the mouse, and then you drag and place on anywhere within the form that you would like it to be. Okay, that's another common manipulation that you can do. To delete a control, simply press the delete key. To restore the control, click edit on the menu bar and then click undo, or of course you can use the shortcut Control plus Z. If I delete this, I can come up here and say undo. If I delete this again, I can press Control key plus Z key at the same time on the keyboard and it comes back. Okay, so that's a common manipulation technique, common to Windows operating system. Okay, to lock and unlock the controls, right click the form or any control on the form and then click lock controls on the context menu. The lock controls option is a toggle option. Clicking it once activates it and clicking it again deactivates it. You can also click format on the menu bar and then click lock controls. So let's assume that I want to lock this text box. I can click format here and I click lock controls. Okay, you see the icon lock controls. Okay, now it is locked. By being locked now, I cannot expand it. I cannot try to make it bigger or smaller or things like that. Okay, so I think that's is another useful thing, and it's you might just want to lock them so that you don't mistakenly just manipulate them. All right, so that's how to manipulate controls in a form. Page 7. Okay, any questions so far?
Can you please repeat the part where you have to lock and unlock the controls?
Okay, so thank you for that question. So I say you drag a control to the screen, whatever control or object it is, drag it to the screen. Let me use a picture box this time. So this is the picture box. I want to place it here. I don't want to tamper with the height, width, or anything. Okay. So you go to the format tab, and then you look for lock controls. Okay. So right now, if I click on lock controls, it brings a lock sign at the edge. So, and it prevents me from having to do anything with that control. Okay, and then you can always click on it again, go back to the format and click on lock controls again, and then it comes back. So now you can edit it. I mean, you can manipulate it because you have unlocked it. Okay, so now on page 6 of the document, your project will be created and a form called Form 1 should be displayed on your screen. We already have that. The toolbox that is available contains many of the common elements that you may require when designing your form, which includes adding text boxes, buttons, labels, etc. Yes, we have seen that. We have seen the toolbox. I've just shown you. The bottom right area of your screen contains the properties of a selected object. And this is the properties window at the bottom right here. We've seen that as well. Click on the text property and change the value from Form 1 to My Name Application. Okay. So if you want to do that, we are told to change the text property of Form 1. This is Form 1. I changed it to First Project, but if you want to change it to My Name Application, then in this case, I can just change it to my name, say Victor, and let me just say application, Victor application. So I've changed the text property of this form 1 to Victor application by changing it right here. Okay, and then save your project. Go to File, Save All, and save it in your H drive. Okay, so this would be applicable if you were using the university's LAN computers, or if you're using your own personal computer that has been mapped to the network drive called the H drive, which is your student drive. Then you can save it in the H drive. But if not, you can just save it anywhere on your personal computer, especially if you are studying from home. Okay, so File, Save All. Okay, I've done that. File, Save All, and then okay, this is more information. That's if you're working from your H drive, you may receive an error that looks similar to the one below. So if you receive any error like this while working from your H drive, then click on OK. Okay, then we move on to the next page, which is page 7, where we are actually expected to use the lessons we've learned to create the image below. The image is showing a form that contains a label. The label is titled Olivia is bilingual. That means she can speak 2 languages. Picture box is another control, which is where this picture exists. English is a button, which is one of the controls. Spanish is also a button. Exit is also a button. Okay, so who can tell me how many controls or objects can you see in this form? Anyone? Inside, yeah?
I think there are 3 like control.
Okay, check again. Inside the form, remember this is our form. Inside the form, how many controls? How many different controls? Don't count them in groups. Do you get what I mean? So you have a button, you have another button, and you have another button. So there are 3 buttons here. So there are 3 different controls, even though they are all buttons, but they will have different names. Button, maybe button 1, button 2, button 3. Okay, and then this is a label, and then this is a picture box. All right, so the fact that they are all buttons does not mean they have the same name. Okay, they have different names when you check the properties window. So for example, let me drag 3 buttons to the page, to the form. 1, 2, 3. You see, it automatically assigns different text, but that's not what we're interested in. If I click on button 1 and I come here, the text is button 1. That is what is displayed on the button, but that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is the name property. So if you see the name property, that this is the name that is used in the VB code to identify this object. Okay. I think one way I used to explain the name and the text property is this. So you have a name, you have a first name. Let me check some of the first names here. There is Ayanda, there is Huda, there is Sizwe, there is Nondumiso, there is Samgelisiwe, and a whole lot of other names. So those are your names, right? When you go around in public, I don't think you place these names on your foreheads for people to identify you as, some gay or surprise or Huda. Okay, but you know that's your name. People that know you, they can refer to you by that name. Okay, however, if you were going and you were wearing a shirt, and on that shirt something was written, okay, So whatever was written on the shirt can be publicly seen by people. All right. It can be seen by people. So, but your own name, if whatever is written on the shirt is maybe Apple or Windows, let's say Windows was written on the shirt you're wearing, very visible Windows. People would see Windows because it's obvious. It's what is displayed. So that's how the text property looks like. It's what you can see, literally on the form, on the control. But the name, the actual name of that object itself, is usually not shown in the form, but it is used in the VB code to identify that object or that control. So that's one way you can use to understand the differences between the name and the text properties of your object or your controls. Okay, so here there are 3 buttons: button 1, button 2, button 3. So button 1 here, the name is button 1. Button 2 here, the name is button 2. And button 3 here, the name is button 3. So they have 3 different names, and of course 3 different texts that are displayed on them. Okay, so I have dragged 3 buttons to the screen. Now I want to drag a label or add a label to the form. I want to add a label. Okay, so I'll just look for label in my toolbox. I can double click on this, drag it somewhere here. Okay, and then what else? I want to drag a picture box to the form. Picture box. So I look for picture box here, drag this to the form, and then I can make this bigger. I can increase the height if I want to. I can change the direction of this. And now you have the controls on the screen, which is what you see inside this form. Remember, our form is called Victor application. Yours can be named anyhow you like it. Okay, so now we can see here that these buttons, they have different texts shown on them. This label has been renamed as Olivia is bilingual, and this picture box contains the image of Olivia, I think, in this case. Okay, so the bottom right area of your screen contains the properties of a selected object, as we've talked about. Click on the text property and change the value from label 1 to Olivia is bilingual. So I will go to this label 1. I click on label 1. Once I click on it, the properties window changes for label 1. If I click on button 1, the properties window is only for button 1. So be sure that you have clicked on the actual control you would like to change the properties before going ahead to the properties window. So I've clicked on label 1. Now I can go to the bottom right corner and look for the text property, which is right here. There's the text property. Then I can change this. Olivia is bilingual. Okay. And press enter, or you just come anywhere to the form to click on the form, your change will be implemented. So Olivia is bilingual now shows right here on the screen. Okay, I hope we're still together. Any questions so far? All right, I take that as no question. So we did the same thing for button 1. We click on button 1, we change it to English. So English, button 1, you click on the text property, you change to English. Button 2, you change to Spanish. So apparently these are the 2 languages she can speak. And button 3, you change to exit. And then you should have something like this as shown here on the screen. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to add an image. So what we've done so far is we've just changed the text properties of the different controls that we have here. So the next thing is to change the property of this picture box. And the property we need to change is the image property. So you go to the image. After selecting picture box, you go to image, and then you click on the three dots here, which is the ellipsis symbol. You click on that, and you look for the image and the project resource file. So in this case, this is trying to look within your project, but if you have not put any images there yet, well, you can just click on import and look for where your image has been saved. In this case, you're looking for, let's see. Okay, I think I must have saved mine inside. I think I saved mine in the, okay, yeah, okay, I remember. I saved that in the images folder. Of ISTN practicals. Okay, so I saved the image of Olivia inside a folder. So I've located the folder. Now select the name, the image, which is right here, and I click open. So once you click on import, you just have to go look for the image wherever you've saved it. That's all. So you know where you've saved the image. So for this practical, on Moodle, you would see a folder for the images for our practicals. So go to Moodle, under the programming practical section. There is a folder that you should download that contains all the images that you'll be needing for this programming practicals. Okay, so I've selected my image here and I click OK. And let's wait for the image to be imported. And here you go, the image has been imported, and I can just decide to either expand this to make it bigger, or I can look for the properties that talks about the size. So if you come to the properties of this picture box, you can decide to change it to a way that maybe it's going to be smaller and you don't want it to be too big. Okay, so there are different ways you can specify how. Of course, I've told you about the width and height options. So let's check 200. Okay, I think that's smaller than the image. So that is not going to be good. Let's look for size mode. Let's say center image. Okay, or you can say stretch image, or you can say auto size. So auto size looks like this. We don't want that. It covers our other controls. So let's change this to center image, and I will leave it as that for now. And I can decide if I want to just lock it so that it doesn't get tampered with in terms of the height and the width. So now we have something like this right here in our form. Okay, and the next thing we need to do is okay, we've done all this, I've explained all this. Okay, yeah, so we have carried out all the instructions in this document, even though I was not always looking at the document, but I assure you that whatever has been written in these sections, I've already explained them to you. If you obviously you can go ahead and rewatch the video to see how we did that. But now we've created our first form containing an image, 3 buttons, and a label. The image is inside a picture box, and we have given different names to our, different texts to our buttons and to our label. So if you decide to run this program, so in this case, we have not actually used any VB codes. We have just changed the properties. We have just worked on the design. We have not really coded anything in VB. Okay, but you can still try to run it by clicking on the start button here. Okay, start. You click on the start button. It tries to run your Windows form application. I'm still waiting for it. It's still loading, still loading. We are trying to run it. And there you go. So this is our application appearing on the screen. So ideally, these buttons should do something, but we have not coded the buttons. Because today we are not talking about the coding yet, just showing you how to use the designer window. So ideally, these buttons should be clickable if you have coded the buttons. That means if you have instructed the buttons to do certain things using Visual Basic codes. But right now, the buttons are not doing anything, but this is just showing you how an interface can be designed. So later on in our subsequent practicals, then we'll be talking about how we can code different controls in our Windows forms. Okay, so I'm just going to close this here. Normally, that doesn't require any code. It's just a Windows application to close a window. So I have closed that window, and once again, I can go to File, Save All, and then that is the end of the practical. Any questions, comments, queries, requests? Anyone? I'm gonna just give you 2 minutes to do that. If you have any questions or queries or comments, drop them in the chat section or via the microphone, and then I would attend to them after 2 minutes. If you don't have any questions, please feel free to drop your student numbers and the campus you belong to, and then you can leave the session.